Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Jim Langfelder, Mayor of the City of Springfield, Illinois. I'd like to welcome you to our first Facebook Live with regards to the coronavirus pandemic. And with me that's joining me is Chief Alan Riney of the Fire Department and Police Chief Kenny Winslow. So I'll give a few brief opening remarks followed by each chief, and then we'll open it up for questions and take those as long as needed. But what we'd really like to do is start off by thanking all the first responders and hospital workers, everybody that's putting themselves in harm's way for our benefit and our health. That's what the coronavirus has done. It's really taught us the importance of the sacrifices others are doing for us. And it goes all the way up from the healthcare workers all the way to the grocery store workers, those that are providing services to us each and every day. And so with the Facebook Live, one of the items that we wanted to touch upon is with the governor's extended order. We thought it would be important to answer any questions related to that. The first order of the stay-at-home order expires April 30th, and the governor has extended that through the end of May. And the city of Springfield supports that initiative because one thing that we've learned through all of this, each and every day is different in all of our lives. And right now there's no cure, there's no vaccine. The only proven method for stopping the spread of the coronavirus is social distancing. And so for all of us that have families or not, it's a challenging time in our lives. And so we need to take each day at a time. How do we improve our lives together and move in that direction? So the changes with regards to the governor's order, he has listened to mayors across the state. I know I'm not the only one that talks to him or the only citizen that talks to the mayor or governor's office, but we appreciate them listening. The one key element that I picked up on is with retail businesses. With restaurants, they've been able to do the grab and go delivery services. That's going to be available to retail stores within our community. So you can see which retail stores are going to offer services. More than likely, you can go online or call the particular store of your interest and place your order, and then they would arrange a time where you could actually pick up the item or have those delivered to you directly. And this is an important time in all of our lives with regard to the economics. I think everybody understands the true economic picture. It's really important that we support our brick and mortar stores within our community because those are our neighbors. Those are individuals that we go to church with, that we go to school with, things of that nature. So the more we can support one another as much as possible, that helps not only your neighbors, but also it helps us from the city perspective provide the services that you deserve and expect, like the police coverage, like the fire department being responsible for public works. Those all come largely due to our sales tax dollars that we have. And so we will be impacted by the lack of sales tax dollars due to the pandemic and the isolation that everybody's had to adhere to. And so it's important that we do support local businesses as much as possible because not only do they provide great product, great services, but also it helps us as a city of Springfield provide the essential services that each and every one of us need to live our lives. So the other thing with regards to that is the wearing of masks. That's an initiative wherever you go in public. If you cannot keep that 6-foot social distance, you're asked to either wear a mask that covers up your nose and your mouth or a face covering. What's interesting with the mask, and I've learned a lot over the time frame of the last 6 weeks or so, maybe 2 months, the masks are, unless you have a KN95, those are to protect the individual. The face covering or the mask, it's actually to protect the public against you. If you sneeze or something, you'll be caught in the mask. It's so you don't expand your germs to others. And it's an important feature because as we move towards the future, it's just not through May. This is going to be the way we live our lives until a vaccine is proven reliable. And so this is something that we'll have to adjust to. I'm a handshaker myself. That's gone out the window. But it's important that we are cognizant of one another's health. And so the mask is a common sense approach. And actually, we had implemented recommendation to wear masks when you go to the grocery store or when you go to those public spaces. So for the city of Springfield, we're looking at our own work environment. How do we implement that for our own coworkers, keeping them safe and the public safe as well? So that's an important aspect. So beginning tomorrow, actually May 1st, if you're going out in public to a store, you should wear your mask or face covering. And actually, I do have mine here with me. I have one that's been made, or you can just have one that's kind of like the surgical mask or a face covering. I've seen people with scarves and things of that nature. So those are the main items that have changed with the stay-at-home order. The other important fact is I'm in constant communication with the governor's office. They are looking at how do we stop the spread. That's most important. So it's important that we continue our hand washing. Don't touch your face. 95%, I've heard 95% of individuals that catch the coronavirus, it's from you touching, or an individual touching their face. That's how it transmits into your nostrils or your mouth or eyes or what have you. So it's important to not touch your face, wash your hands as much as possible, keep your social distance, and move in that direction. But the governor's office is assessing the cases throughout the state of Illinois in areas, and then also how it's working when we do this reopening of businesses. So we are taking initial steps with the reopening May 1st with the retail stores, as I mentioned, and that's the curbside pickup, and some other amenities will be available. You can go to springfield.il.us or just go down to our Facebook where you can get the latest order, as well as go to our COVID page with a lot of other information associated with that. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Riney, and Fire Chief Alan Riney. He's been with the department a long time. The main point, he's been a great fire chief. My second appointment as fire chief, and I think I caught him off guard when I did it, but he's proving his salt with this pandemic. This is a very challenging time, but he's the individual leading the city of Springfield in coordination with the county, associated with the incident command staff over there, or the team, I should say. And we have a Class 1 fire department, and that's due to the support of the taxpayers. That's why we have a Class 1 fire department, because we educate our fighters. We provide them the resources that they need to serve us. And there's only 3% of the fire departments that reach that level of service. And we're proud to say that Springfield is one of those 3%. And we have a great leader with Chief Alan Riney. And I'll just turn it over to him to talk about some of the challenges he's had with the department, working with the incident command team and moving in the direction with regards to the new order.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate those kind words. And yes, you did catch me off guard a couple of years ago. So the incident management team, our focus has been every day on the health and safety of residents in Sangamon County and those who come in and out of our county. That has not changed. That is at the top of our list every day. And all of the things that we do as an incident management team are under that guidance, just to make sure that what we are doing is working. What we are doing is providing the best advice that we can, because this is something that is bigger than the Springfield Fire Department, any really one department, any one city. This global pandemic is something that we have to continually take advice from the experts and to focus on what they are telling us, and to make sure that the information that we are able to tell a difference between fact and fiction, between opinion and fact. And that's what we do every morning when we meet, is we start with that, the safety of the public, and then the safety of providers. And that's not just firefighters, police officers. There's almost every city department has, we're a public service city. And so we all have different aspects of trying to fill that guidance, that public service message, to make sure that we're getting out there and that we are protecting the people that have to provide those valuable services to the citizens of Springfield, and then even more than that, to the county, to the state, really across the nation. The biggest problems that we've faced is just the learning curve, because, as a fire chief, we're taught you're taught as a paramedic or an excuse me, as an EMT to, different levels of PPE, different levels of how you respond and how you protect yourself. But this is a little different. This is something that, you don't have that expertise to be, to know how to keep a global pandemic from spreading and know how to keep your people safe and past that, and then what level of PPE, and is that going to be enough, and is it going to expand? Because the problem with the first part of this is we didn't have any of those answers. We weren't getting a lot of information from where it started, which didn't help. And then really when it got to other countries, we were really a little bit behind the curve just trying to get that information. And, we as the fire department were very lucky. We had a good stockpile of PPE. Some of that was just coincidentally of when this started, just happened to coincide with when we normally order those things. So that was very lucky. Obviously looking forward, we want to make sure that we maintain that to keep our people safe. And we want to make sure that we're not hoarding it, that we're keeping it available for the rest of the city who also have to continue to serve the public. And the second problem that we identified very early on, I've spoken at length about this publicly and even tried to do a few videos on my own, is just reaching the young people in our community, reaching the youngest population to let them know that you can be asymptomatic. You don't have to be sick to spread this. And if you spread this to our most vulnerable people, it could be tragic and it could lead to death. But it should not be overlooked that, nobody wants this, but really it can be horrific at any level. It's while, those pockets that we identify, it's just like anything else. Any young person that gets it is going to be very sick and is not going to, it may not be fatal, but it may be worse than anything you've had with normal flus and other illnesses. We've had a lot of calls with the fire department. I see some questions popping up about different businesses and how we're vetting them and how we determine what is and what is not an essential business. And I'm going to let Chief Winslow answer that more. He's done a lot more research, but basically we're taking our guidance from the state. So the state has determined what is and what is not an essential business. And we are just taking that guidance and issuing our best advice to business owners to help them succeed so that they keep their employees safe and that they keep the public safe that's coming in and out of their stores. So I get a lot of questions of, why is for example, why is a dog salon now deemed able to open when a hair salon is not? And the easiest way I can answer that is they are two different businesses. One of them was deemed to be a low risk profile because maybe you're walking up with your pet and handing them off at the door. That contact is very minimal at that point. It's no different than any other kind of quick business transaction, where a hair salon, you are in a little more close contact. But I will be the first to admit that I've seen some of the business proposals that have come forward. I've evaluated some of the, especially with hair salons, some of the plans that they've made to keep that, maybe not that social distance, but maybe both people wear a mask. And that's what I think the mayor was speaking about earlier when we, if we ever get to a point where those decisions are at the local level, that we will hopefully be able to evaluate those plans and just to simply see if they meet the criteria that is important to us. What we can't do is have one area where the rules are relaxed and the very next town over where the rules are not, because then you're going to have people moving around. You're going to have them spreading that. So I hear a lot of people, for example, say, why don't we just close down Cook County? Well, the county next to Cook County will just be flooded with those people, and that will continue to escalate this across the state. It's best if we all just do what we're being asked to do and socially isolate and stay indoors and do those things. But short of that, you still have to get groceries. You still have to, go to doctor's appointments, things like that. Then what steps do you take when you have to do those things? So that's a lot of the focus has been on the county. Most of what I would say with the incident management team, we have a lot of plans in place. Luckily, most of them haven't needed to be implemented. Some of them are sitting on the shelf, and the minute they're implemented, we will continue to reevaluate, because we always say you don't know what you don't know yet. And sometimes you can get smart people in a room and they try to think of every possible scenario, and guess what? The minute you implement the plan, something happens that changes your focus. So we understand the frustration of business owners. I get it. I come from people that ran small businesses. We're all in this together. There is no vested interest in anybody shutting down a business in Springfield, because that is our lifeblood, as the mayor said. That is literally how the fire department is funded, and that's going to be a big focus of going forward. Is when it's safe to do so, how do we get those businesses back open and getting people buying stuff in our community again?
Yeah, those are all good points, especially with the small businesses. That's the backbone of any city across the country. So all the governors understand that, the mayors understand that, the president, everybody understands the importance of small businesses. And what we don't want to do is roll things out prematurely, so to speak, and then you have to start closing down businesses again. So makes sense to do the, really the fiduciary, or I guess from the health standpoint, the correct way to roll it out and moving in that direction. And so we're looking forward to supporting local businesses as much as possible. The one thing we should point out is sometimes when you're, grow up in the home of Abraham Lincoln, you take things for granted, like Lincoln's home, Lincoln's tomb. One other great asset, or we have many great assets, are our hospitals and our medical providers. We have 2 level 1 trauma centers with Memorial Health Services and HSHS St. John's. And then you complement that with SIU School of Medicine, Springfield Clinic. We have a great provider of medical services, and that's proven through the numbers. I know the hospital's built out. You're speaking of worst case scenarios. The hospital's built out to expect the worst, and fortunately, we knock on wood, they haven't reached that level. I think they're around 30% or low 30% bed capacity of what's been taken up by the COVID-19. But if you could really share the numbers real quick, Chief Riney, as far as how many have been tested, how many have been positive, and if you could share those real quick.
I believe it's around 1,700 have been tested. I can pull it up as I answer this question, but 1,700, I believe, have been tested. And right now we're at about 9% of those tested have been positive. But if you split out the villas, it's about 4.5. It's almost roughly half of our positives in Sangamon County are in that one location. And so it's been throughout the incident, it's been about 5% of those. And again, that was when you had to be symptomatic to be tested. Now that the standards are relaxed a little bit, and we're able to test some asymptomatic first responders, for example, and some asymptomatic people, or people that may have been in kind of close contact with somebody, but maybe 3 weeks ago would not have gotten a test, but now would. We obviously expect those numbers to go up as far as who is tested. But the one that I really worry about is that per cap number. That's the one that's important. So if 10,000 people get tested, and not only, I shouldn't say that, but if 10,000 people get tested and we're still at 5% of those positive, that is a good sign that what we're doing is working. If you start to see that 5% rise up, that is a bad sign that this is spreading, and we need to figure that out.
And that's the important part you touched on earlier, was the regionalization, where we do have regional providers of healthcare services between St. Louis and Chicago. Springfield is a hub of medical services, so it's just not Sangamon County we serve, it's a multi-county region. So that's why it's important to understand that true aspect and how the coronavirus can cross over. It knows no boundaries with regards to that. But one of the most challenging things for cities is, and going into this from the initial states, we're making sure that our police and firefighters are, protected as much as possible. So the challenge was, not only do you have to continue to serve the public, but the other challenge is you make sure that your workforce does not become quarantined because someone fell ill with the coronavirus. And that's been the challenging aspect of this whole situation. And, I've said it many times, of course, I hold up Springfield greater than others, but I couldn't ask for a better police chief and a police department with regards to the city of Springfield. Police Chief Kenny Winslow, he really understands the true engagement, the true importance of community engagement, how important that is. And that transcends all the way down to the front line with regards to our police force. They put their lives on the line each and every day for all of us. And it's important when they ask us to adhere, to comply with the mandate of the coronavirus, it's for all our goods. So we can stay healthy. That's what they're looking after, is our own health. And they put themselves at harm's way, not only each and every day, now it's gone to the next level with the coronavirus. And we really appreciate all they've done in the pre-COVID-19 days, but during the the COVID-19 days, and what they continue to do each and every day for us. So we appreciate your leadership, Chief Winslow. And if you could share some of the challenges you've experienced and what the great job all your men and women of the police department are doing.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Again, to kind of echo what Al said, the medical aspects of this and how we continue to provide a quality service while keeping our officers safe, but also the public safe. Obviously, you can be asymptomatic with this COVID-19, and we do not want to be spreaders of the disease either. So it has been a challenge with us. The communication with Al and the incident management team has been great. We get updates every day about that. We're able to pick up the phone, make calls, inquire, as well as with the state. We're in a new time where we are enforcing things that we never thought we would be enforcing. Again, and a lot of that comes down and it affects people's livelihood and how we do that in a professional manner while, maintaining our regular calls for service too. I would say one of the biggest challenges, other than keeping our officers safe and them adapting to wearing PPE, that's new to us. I mean, we've always wore PPE, but only on special occasions, not when we were doing normal response to calls for services. And as the governor's orders have changed and as information has came available to us through the CDC and through the incident management team, we've had to constantly change our requirements too for our officers. And that's something that they have to learn to. Anybody who's ever worn an N95 mask on a call when it's 70 degrees out realizes that it becomes very hot very quickly and uncomfortable. It affects your breathing and et cetera. So, but our officers out there, they're doing a great job. They're working hard to keep themselves safe as well as keep the public safe. The other issue we've had to deal with is how do we continue to provide good quality service to our community when we can't be out there engaging them as much as we like to be. Our community policing aspect has had to take a little stand back and kind of been paused for a little bit. A lot of things that we normally do this time of year has not occurred, and we've had to deal with that. Additionally, we've done a lot of telesurf calls. A lot of calls that an officer used to respond to, they are not responding to. We're still taking those calls and doing those investigations, but we're doing them via technology, whether that's talking to somebody over the phone, whether that's communicating with them online, et cetera. We're just trying to take that information and follow it up at a safe distance. A lot of times when you have a call for service, you'll get a call from a police officer before he ever comes on scene if it's not an emergency call, where he'll gather as much information as possible, or she'll gather as much information as possible to be able to handle the call as much as possible from their vehicle, and then to limit that contact, face-to-face contact when they do get there. And obviously when they're getting out of their cars, they're wearing a mask. They have two different types of masks. They have their N95, but they also have surgical masks. We have different requirements for when they have to wear each one of those. And they're still adapting that too. But obviously there are those calls for services, those spontaneous responses where we cannot get a mask on, and it's unfortunate. The biggest thing is I'm very proud of our officers and what they've done during this crisis and the way they've been able to continue to provide a quality service to everybody. Additionally, a big thing is, getting businesses to comply with the new restrictions, getting the citizens to comply with the new restrictions that have been placed upon them. Easter Sunday, people wanted to go to church. People wanted to have Easter Sunday lunches and dinners, and how we dealt with it. And I can say that the community overwhelmingly supported and complied with the orders that were placed out there. I expect the same to go be the truth tomorrow when May 1st comes, and there's some, reduction in restrictions, but also, some new requirements as well with the face mask or face coverings for any time you're in a public indoor facility. So if you go into a grocery store or a gas station, you have to have that face mask on. And I believe that the stores and the business owners will work with us to make sure that it is enforced. The bottom line is the police cannot be everywhere. We cannot be the people out there who are trying to enforce if somebody does not have a mask on or has a mask on. And we're going to rely on the retail merchants and those managers and those store owners to enforce that. They have a responsibility to do so as well, just like they have the ability to refuse service. So, we've dealt with this in the past. We deal with it every year during Halloween. It's just the opposite, though. Somebody comes up to the stores and they're wearing a Halloween mask, and the stores refuse to let them enter without removing it. And this will be kind of the same way. We expect them to comply with the governor's orders and basically post a signage out there, make sure people are wearing appropriate PPE, or refuse them service until they come back with the appropriate PPE. And that's how we're going to do that. We're going to work on an education campaign today. We've already been starting on it with our businesses. We'll rely on some of our partners to get that messaging out to them. But again, we cannot do this at once. It is not our goal to go out there and write a bunch of citations to our public or to our businesses and put additional hardship upon them when they're already struggling. So I think all of us working together, all doing our part to gain compliance with the order, and all of us doing our part as far as social distancing will keep us all safe. The other big thing for us is just, I kind of touched on a little bit, is, we like to be a very proactive police department. Unfortunately, in these times, we became more of a reactive police department, and it's not the ideal way to deal with things. And us, unlike some other communities I've talked to, some other chiefs that I was speaking with, they've seen a 40 or 50% reduction in calls for service. We have not seen that in Springfield. We've seen a very slight reduction in calls for service, but unfortunately, our crimes against persons had a 32% increase in the month of March. So again, with the warm weather, it's almost like we got 2 more months of summer. And we all know with warm weather, unfortunately, crime goes up. So how do we do that? How do we continue to provide a quality service while also trying to keep our officers safe and maintain some social distancing? And that's the challenges we have facing.
And we appreciate that overview on the PPEs. That is personal protective equipment, so it's the mask, it's the gloves, but to the first responders, I had to learn that in probably about a week after people kept saying PPEs. I go, oh, personal protection equipment, right? Isn't that what it stands for? Very good. They're nodding their head yes. So one question or a couple questions on the mask real quick is, did come in as far as how would the police enforce that? And then the other one is with regards to business owner, can a storefront, can they mandate that people wear masks, and is it okay to turn them away if a person's not wearing a mask? So meaning the personal protective equipment. Chief Winslow.
Yeah, and that's correct, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to rely on the business owners to enforce that mandate that the governor has put down. We don't plan on going out and being the mask police. We just have too high a call volume to do that. Obviously, I think most retail merchants have already put together a quality plan, and they want to keep their employees safe as well. And so most of them have already put employees at the front door. And at that front door, they can remind people that, hey, you have to have a mask to come in here. And if you don't have it on, they have the right to turn them away for service. And again, I kind of use the analogy that we already have dealt with for many, many years, and that's the wearing a Halloween mask and not being able to go into a store. They have every right to refuse service to do that. And as far as enforcement, again, it's all about compliance. That's what we're trying to get here. And I think the vast majority of all of our business owners will comply, as well as will our citizens. My plan is right now that if a business does not comply, and we get complaints about it, we'll go out there and we'll issue them a notice to comply, educate them on what the executive order says and their responsibilities under that too, and then we'll deal with it appropriately from there.
And then if you could touch real quick with regards to, this is a mandatory compliance. So if someone's not wearing one, they need to get to a point where they're not coming in contact with others. I would imagine, but that's the question. Is someone asked if it's voluntary compliance, and I think this comes from the group aspect where you're not allowed to gather with more than 10 individuals. So as you touch on the voluntary or mandatory aspect of the mask, if you'd briefly touch on the we had protests where people asked, well, why are you allowing them to do that at the Capitol grounds when there's over 10 people? So if you could touch on both those, that'd be helpful.
Okay, well, we'll start with the protest. Well, first off, you're talking about somebody's right to peacefully assemble is protected by the First Amendment, and the governor's order, unfortunately, does not trump that from the legal guidance we have been provided. the protests over there are at the Capitol grounds, which falls under the Secretary of State Capitol Police jurisdiction. We do work with them hand in hand to make sure that we are all on the same page as far as maintaining a peaceful and civil protest. And that's the goal over there during those time periods. But they do have the right to protest. We do often work together with the Illinois State Police as well as the Capitol Police to monitor those situations and deal with them. I'm not going to get into the tactics of what we do, et cetera, and how we do that. But, you know, as far as people are up there, we have to weigh the rewards and the risk that comes with going in and maybe trying to issue somebody a citation for not wearing a mask, et cetera. As far as like is a party at home, again, we've been doing this for several weeks now in compliance. Right now, we have not issued a single citation as of last Thursday that I'm aware of. I haven't got this week's updates yet. Most people do comply. And again, it's not our goal out there to write a bunch of tickets to try to generate funds or revenue. That's not the point of it. The point is compliance. Now, we will issue somebody a citation if we have to. And if we have to take it up a notch, then we can always go to a criminal charge. But we haven't had to do that at this point in time, nor is that our goal. As far as, you know, just the normal gatherings, our goal is to disperse those gatherings. If somebody's having a party or something, explain to them the reasoning and the rationale behind it, as well as the executive order the governor has issued. There is a difference from protesting on the State House grounds at the Capitol in your First Amendment right versus having a house party. There's a difference there, and some people don't understand that. But you know, having a protest at the State House where the people who have implemented these rules and you have your constitutional right to voice your concerns about that is the highest protected civil right that there is.
Yeah, no, just words of advice. Anybody that does that, you know, when the first ones that we had down there, they didn't have the masks on, they weren't social distancing. If you want to get your point across that you can not harm others, because that's what this is all about, not bringing unexpected harm to others, because I could be asymptomatic and I'd be feeling fine, but I could pass the coronavirus on to somebody else, an elderly person that has underlying health conditions, and it could lead to death. So that's the importance. But if someone wants to express their, you know, the freedom of speech, they should do it responsibly and wear a mask and keep your social distance as needed, because that's a way you can get your point across to elected officials, and making sure that you will be responsible in what you're trying to do, and not impact others with regards to how you're living your life. The one item that did come up, and it's touching on testing. So Chief Ryan, if you'd shed some light on this, the person asks, when in the future can regular people get tested that are not sick or showing symptoms, so they can self-quarantine if they need to?
So yeah, if you see me looking to the right, that's what I've been doing, is trying to keep up with the questions, which is a monumental task, apparently. I don't type quick enough. But that has been a reoccurring. There's been several people that have asked that question. So by my understanding, there are 2 test sites that have relaxed their standards a little bit. Initially, when Walgreens opened at 9th and North Grand, that location, you had to go online, you had to be vetted, you had to have some type of symptoms, something like that. And then you were given an appointment and you showed up and went through the lot. It was a pretty quick process, and most people were getting the results back within 24 hours. I do believe that they have relaxed those standards a little bit, that it is easier for you to get tested, to go through that line. Maybe if you're just once removed from an exposure, or you're just worried because you were in a place where now you've seen either on the news or through social media that there might be positive employees in there. And so that would be my advice, to first go through that, try that Walgreens site. And the other one is at the Sangamon County Department of Public Health. They have a drive-through now. That one just opened. I'm not as familiar with that one. I do believe that you can pull up, and I don't believe you have to have an appointment, but I hate to put that out there and that not be true. So I'll put in the comments later once I get some ground truth on that. But, you know, I've talked to a lot of people that, you know, maybe you were just in Casey's buying a gift card or something, and you're worried that you were in there that you were worried that you were in there and that somebody was positive. If you had limited
That's one in
exposure,
Sherman.
yeah, if you had limited exposure, and if you had limited exposure while you were in there, if you were just buying a soda and you did good social distancing and you had good hand hygiene and things like that, your exposure potential is very limited.
Right. And the location for the public health, for those that don't know, it's South Grand near Dirksen Parkway, right near Penny's, or to the west of Penny's. And so the other item that's been a challenge is keeping people safe, all levels of society. If you'd touch on the homeless, I know, especially with, the shelters, we have a great continuum of care with Helping Hands, Salvation Army. They've really stepped up to the plate. You have individuals that help out on a regular basis to look after their welfare. So if you touch on that aspect of how the homeless are being provided for, that'd be great.
Yeah, and there have been a few questions about food programs and things too. So initially, that was one of the first things we identified, was because while the homeless population may have observed some social distancing already, once it got into that very vulnerable group of people, we were worried that it would spread rapidly. So, Captain Eddie at Salvation Army, Juan Hort, Erica Smith, and I shouldn't name people because you always forget people, but they have been phenomenal to work with, and really was one of the first groups that the incident management team tasked with getting something accomplished. And within a day, they had the plan, and that plan involved finding a little bit larger location, and then asking the homeless people that were to agree to quarantine. And for the most part, they had great cooperation. They're obviously worried about their safety and well-being, and for the most part, agreed to stay in those facilities and ride this quarantine, this wave out. But we're always worried about those that are still out on the streets and how we can best protect them. That was why we made the decision to temporarily close the library grounds, to make sure that we didn't have a space where people were congregating that could more easily infect others if one of them became positive. And that's the bottom line with really what we're doing here, just globally, and just asking people to do is just, if you can maintain that distance and just keep this virus from spreading, the best case scenario is that what somebody may have once caught on an elevator is now being cleaned up and thrown away. And that's what we're just trying to do to get through this. Again, everybody's heard flatten the curve and all of those things, but we know what we're doing is working. We just don't know how long. Is it a peak or is it a plateau? That's the biggest thing now. So I'm sorry, I got a little off topic, but the food bank aspect of the question, the food banks were obviously worried about their stock and and how much resources they would need, because it wasn't that they were already providing a service to people that needed it, and a very valuable service. What we were worried about and what they were worried about is the increase. So the working poor that may have been temporarily displaced from their job, that now can't fall back onto that savings account or that plan that they had, needing that temporary help. And that's what they've done a really good job, and to focus on that, to keep those pantry stocked. I know the city has helped out in that aspect too, as well as others.
Yeah, on that note, with the food bank, Central Illinois Food Bank, they not only supply for individuals here, but from a regional standpoint, but with the, I was talking with Pam Maltors, probably about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and that's when you first started hearing the long lines of food banks in larger cities. And then you look at the possibilities, you plan for the worst case scenario. So at that point in time, it was decided to pledge $100,000 to purchase food to make sure that we can supply the food pantries in Springfield. because our dollars have to go to the corporate limits of Springfield, Illinois. So we made that commitment, and I think they're supposed to get 3 truckloads. I think they only received 1 because of the disruption of the food resources. And so that's the challenge that the whole coronavirus has brought to all communities across the country. The food chain supplies are being disrupted because of the illness falling upon meatpacking entities and things like that, and it flows all the way down the line. And the one thing I will say for the governor's office, they have been very receptive because we are a hospitality community. We have a lot of restaurants. Unfortunately, the hotels have been disrupted immensely, the restaurants to a degree, but they offer that curbside pickup. And I, told them, for whatever happens, we need to keep that food portion going, because if you would have shut off the restaurants totally, everybody would have been going to the grocery stores. You would have had a bottleneck of food supplies here locally, and I think it'd been a catastrophe. So thankfully, the governor had the foresight to make sure that we were able to do the curbside pickup with restaurants. People are supporting the local restaurants. We really appreciate it, but it's helped in that food chain supply, which is a challenge each and every day. We're not out of the woods yet, so it's important that we help one another out. And I will give a shout out to Julie Becker. I believe she's the one that helps the homeless downtown on a regular basis, does it from her heart, and we really appreciate all she does with that effort. But the other aspect was with regards to our winter warming center, is a decision made early on by the Salvation Army Helping Hands. We supported it 110%, is to close the winter warming center and move them to a larger location, which is the former Gold's Gym, where the Salvation Army is right now in Clear Lake, and to give more space. But the other aspect, when we were looking ahead of the what ifs, there's one shower facility in there. So we did build out another shower, but we ordered portable showers at that facility where we had 5 showers. And now those are being put to use with regards to the homeless that are not staying inside, that they decide not to stay at Helping Hands or Salvation Army. They wanted to be out on their own, kind of socially distancing in public, so to speak. And now they have a facility that they can go to and take advantage of those showers. I don't know if there's anything briefly you want to touch on that, Chief Riney, or that covers that part.
Yeah, no, and I would throw, again, I hate saying names because you always miss people, but I would throw Larry Rockford in there, who got that facility up and running in with really almost no lead time. I mean, we had the showers, obviously, but it turned out we needed a tent and we needed supplies and things like that had, we didn't think about the tent aspect. So he took that and ran and had it set up from Friday to Monday, and it was ready to go. So I haven't had a report yet on how much it's been used. We'll follow up with them this week and find out. Hopefully people are taking advantage of it.
And, that's for the city of Springfield, we don't look at borders with regards to departments. He works at CWLP, but he does buildings and grounds. So they had the wherewithal to help out in that initiative. And that's how we looked at it, partnering with the county. We didn't look at jurisdictional boundaries. We supply full support with the health emergency pandemic and providing those resources. But the one aspect that had come up with CWLP is with regards to boating and fishing on Lake Springfield. So Chief, I don't know if you want to shed any light on that with regards to the new order. I think it's 2 people per boat. So Chief, if you'd like to answer that or touch on that at all.
Yeah, that is correct, Mayor. The direction we've gotten from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, who are the people who make the decisions on this and relay it to the public, is that it's 2 people per boat in wild fishing. So, and we've seen questions, and we've submitted some responses back and some questions of our own to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DECO as we call it. We've submitted our own questions too, because, the questions we get a lot of times from our citizens are common sense questions. One I got yesterday specifically about boating was, I've been quarantining my whole family for the last 6 weeks. How come I can't take my family of 5 out on the boat with me? That's a very good question. And obviously right now we have to go by what the letter of the order says, but we have submitted that, and hopefully the governor will take a look at that as we move forward. Going on some additional stuff about the fishing and stuff, again, do so in a safe manner, maintain your 6 feet distance, but right now they've limited it to 2. I had some other questions on there that I could probably clarify a little bit right now for everybody. Someone asked about the face covers and the mask, saying that no, you don't have to wear them in public. Well, the way that the governor's order is written, it states that you cannot wear them in public if you can maintain 6 feet distance outside. But if you enter into a store or retail establishment, you must have it on if you were over the age of 2, unless you have a medical reason why you cannot. So again, if you go into a store or if you go into a retail establishment effective tomorrow, May 1st, you must have that face covering or mask on. Now, if you're pumping gas at the gas pump and no one's around you and you're not going into the gas station to purchase something, you don't have to have a mask on because you can maintain that 6 feet social distancing. So I would ask everybody to educate themselves as much as possible, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here too. But you can go to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities website. They have a commonly asked question where a lot of these things are laid out for everybody. They can get that information for themselves. But again, you know, we are looking at that. The other question I saw on here is—
Oh, wait, real quick. We prefer them going to springfield.il.us, the city's website, because we have links and we have all that information as well.
Perfect.
That way we get more viewers, Chief. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm rolling with you. Additionally, with that, one of the questions comes up, will there be any repercussions for businesses who don't enforce that? Again, you know, right now, I think that most businesses will. We will try to get compliance first, but if we don't, then we will take it up a step and then deal with those penalties that could come from this. So again, so far what we've dealt with the retail establishments, most have, they've all complied actually, every one of them. We've had to do one cease and desist since this all started. So I don't anticipate a lot, but could they be fined? Absolutely, could be fined. And we may get to that point, but hopefully we don't. Another question was dealing with police testing. Are we going to delay or postpone it? Our plan is to give the test this summer. We probably will move it back a little bit. Originally, it was supposed to go off the mid-June. We're going to probably scoot that back to July, mid-July, until we get some further guidance here. But our goal is to give that test this summer. We are still accepting applications as of this time. Please go to our website. You can still submit your applications at this time, and then we will basically keep you informed as to when the date is determined.
And that touch on a question that came across with city employees. Are they being furloughed, or with the budget constraints, as you touched on? That's the challenge for businesses, for families, all of us in government. And so what we're doing is seeing what our sales tax dollars come in at. We'll know those numbers in June and take a hard look at it. Right now, what we're doing is cutting back on our spending, slowing down hiring with regards to that. And really we'll have a better understanding of what the true impact is with regards to the coronavirus on the sales tax side of things. The other item is we are, reaching out to our legislative leaders. We have great federal leaders with Senator Duckworth, Senator Durbin, Congressman Hood, Davis, and moving. They understand our true need with regards to the size of municipality that we have. And so the next round of funding, and they've all committed to it, would be for government funding with regards to municipalities and providing those services. So all that combined is really the challenge amongst us, and how do we work through our budget and provide the services that everyone deserves in Springfield. So we'll take that, but everything's on the table. When you have a crisis situation with regards to budget, it could be furloughs, could be layoffs. What we're going to do first is reorganize the city of Springfield operations, because I'm a firm believer it's not only government, but it's businesses. The future of how we deliver our services has changed, and it's moving to the technological phase, and it's being thrust upon us, and we're moving in that direction. So that's what we're going to take a look at. How best can we provide the services, tearing down the barriers between departments and providing those services as best as possible, as economically as possible. So we'll keep you updated with regards to that. The other item, speaking of finances, it asked about with regards to the $800,000 that we received on community development block grant funds. We touched on the $100,000 that was obligated to the food bank. With regards to other initiatives would be business support, as well as rental housing assistance. It went before our Economic Development Commission, and we're working with those programs. There'll probably be an ordinance coming before City Council so that you can improve the allotment of funding that would go towards that type of assistance. But the details of that will be forthcoming in within the upcoming weeks. Going back to the lake real quick, really the kickoff for lake aspect is Memorial Day. So actually, I talked to the governor's office about this very issue today, and they are taking it in consideration because of the situation. You know, we have residents on the lake and others that enjoy Lake Springfield. It doesn't really fall under the state park, but it is something that we need to adhere to. So as of now, it's 2 people per boat, but we're in constant communication with regards to how we're moving forward with opening up services as we can and making sure we don't have the spread of the coronavirus. And that way we can continue to move forward each day. Because the goal with all of this is let's make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today. And we want to do that by moving it forward each and every day. So with regards to, we do plan on doing a Facebook Live in the upcoming weeks with directors like Chief Riney and Chief Winslow. Next week it will be Public Works Director Nate Bottom. I'm sure there'll be some questions about leaf pickup or limb pickup or potholes, things of that nature. And then also Doug Brown, our Chief Utility Engineer, with regards to utility. We're the only generating utility that provides electricity to the residents, but also the water source that we have. It's an asset that is really a gem to Springfield. So any questions related to that and how we deliver services. So before we wrap up, I don't know if either Chief Riney or Chief Winslow, if you'd like to say anything.
I'll take a couple more of these questions real fast. I think I can answer. You know, one is, what are we going to do about kids in groups of 10 or more that are out playing? Obviously, again, there's got to be some personal responsibility here by the parents. We need them and their assistance in making sure they're monitoring their children and they're keeping their children safe. And that's not really a police function. We will deal with it as we're called to. We have been called to those things, and basically we disperse them. But you know, we need the parents to help out here and make sure that we're monitoring this as parents and being responsible. One of the other questions was about.
And real quick on that, I'm going to touch on that real quick because what this is all about is anytime I come to work or I leave my house, even if you go to the store, you're opening up yourself to the virus. And then if you do come in contact, we don't know. If you do, you can wash your hands and everything. But if you rubbed up against it with your jacket or your shirt or something, you could bring it home with you. And that's the danger of the intermingling. And so that's what everybody has to be cognizant of. So anybody that comes into your house from the outside, if you don't know where they've been, it's the same situation. So it's something to be cognizant of. One more, Chief, and then I'll turn it over to Chief Riney.
Perfect. The other question that was on there was about drive-through restaurants, and do you have to wear a mask if you go through the drive-through? Technically, you're not entering the building, so there you would not have to. With that, that's your decision whether you want to or not, but obviously we would ask you to be as safe as possible. If you have a mask, please wear the mask. Again, leave your window up until they bring your food to you or they're trying to do your payment, and then roll the window back up. That's what we'd ask you to do, is use some common sense there. But technically, no, you do not have to have a mask on if you're remaining in your vehicle.
Chief Riney, anything you'd like to reinforce or any thanks?
No, yeah, I think everything Chief Winslow was talking about was stuff that I'd written down in my notes. But you know, for the fire department, it's just different. Our public outreach is different. Kind of what the mayor touched on earlier. You know, public education is a big part of what we do, because if we can prevent those fires from happening, we don't have to react to them or respond to them later. And this is no different. We're just trying to educate the public to make good decisions. So we can teach kids to stop, drop, and roll. We can teach kids not to play with matches. We can teach kids to be fire safe. But sooner or later, individually, they have to make those decisions for themselves. So we can provide all of that education, but we can't be everywhere at once. That's a fact. If I could have a firefighter on every block standing by with a hose, we would never have any house fires, but that is just not a reality. So this is the same thing. We are asking our business community and we're asking our citizens to just do the right thing and to make good decisions. We are trying to empower you with information. We're trying not to give you information overload. We're trying to empower you with information, and with that information, we hope that you make the best decisions for you and your family, just like you would for any other part of the health and well-being for people that you care about.
Yeah, those are all good points, and that's what we've, in conversations with the governor's office, I know they're assessing the situation, of course, learning or leaning on the professionals of the health field with regards to what aspects we're incurring with the coronavirus. But as importantly, with non-for-profits like churches, with businesses, they are assessing on a regular basis, how can we reopen responsibly? But again, it's passed from person to person. There's no vaccine. So the best way to stop the spread and flatten the curve is keeping the social distance. That's proved itself worldwide. Continue to wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Be cognizant of others. So the more we do to be cognizant of that each and every day, because it's just not during this short period of time, this is going to be for the rest of this year, and how do we move forward to the future till the vaccine is ready. And so really, I want to say thank you to all the residents of Springfield. I think we went over the numbers, and thank God we haven't had the significant numbers as others have. And tragically, we've had illnesses and death, and that's, one is too many. And so it's just a tragic situation. But I really appreciate all the individuals that are doing their fair share with regards to being cognizant of others. I think that's why we haven't seen the numbers that were expected, or the worst case scenarios. And that's because of the individuals we have here. I've said many times, Springfield's greatest asset is our people. And this pandemic has proven this out. And so the more we can come together, work together, and stay focused on what the goal is to make sure that we keep each and every person safe in our community, we'll all be better in the long run. So we appreciate all you do to help in that initiative. Thanks, Chief Winslow and Chief Ryan. We appreciate all you do. And let's make today better than yesterday, and tomorrow better than today. Thank you very much.